Nixon and JFK, or JFK, Nixon and a bunch of people in Africa and Russia had actually already planned out everything that was going to happen. This was all painted Lucifer White Star white, as you can see, white and then black, and I think we put it out to the public what color it would be. This is about $1 billion of my money going up in smoke, pretty much, or launching pretty much the LSF 11, basically, or LSF Apollo 11, pretty much. And basically, I had them paint the white and stuff, and they actually weren't going to paint it. Like I said, it's like $1 billion worth of paint, pretty much, and or not $1 billion. I mean, it's like $1 million or like 700 or $800,000 or $300,000 worth of paint. And that's the actual cost of the paint. It's like that a couple. No, it's 3,000 gallons. That's right, 3,000 gallons of paint or something like that, or maybe it was 6,000 or 7,000. It's a lot of paint. 15,000 gallons of paint, basically, the total amount of paint, because it's a huge surface. Anyway, and it was just going to get burned off anyway. And actually, like JFK or Nixon or somebody who actually wanted to sell the paint, wanted to steal the paint, and they actually, like I say, it was like a couple months before the rocket ship launched, and they actually went there to start setting up the cameras and everything else like that. And they're like, why isn't it painted? Because they just had it like primer colored or whatever colored, and they weren't going to paint it because Nixon or JFK, they had already planned on killing the mission control, the launch control. I mean, they'd actually already planned on killing the launch control people before, about 5 or 6 months before they before the rocket actually even launched. So this was actually like in 1940 or so, 1950, when this was actually launching, or 19 whatever. And I think it's actually Russia. I think we're actually looking at someplace in Russia or something like that. This actually, I don't think, is America. I'm not exactly sure if it is or not. But I forget, it's an undisclosed location. They said undisclosed location, but basically I think it's in Russia, I think, or someplace. I forget. It's a big one of my big mines or something like that. I forget exactly where it is myself, actually. But anyway, this is like 1940 or something, when Nixon is just a young guy, I think, or something, or one of or like the first JFK. Like I said, there's 4 JFK clones actually, where he lived a while and then he died or something like that, and then his clone took over or something like that. But anyway, basically, they had already planned on killing the mission control people. I mean, the launch control people, because there's 2 control rooms. There's one for the launching of the missile, and then one for the actual flight. So one control room just did the launching of the rocket, and then one actually did the flight of the rocket. And stuff like that, and the landing. So anyway, or actually, it was like 3 control rooms. One does the landing, one does the flight, one does the landing, or something like that. Anyway. Different subgroups. Anyway, though, as soon as the rocket launched, they actually walked in and they killed all the German launch control people. They killed all the people at the first control room. I think they actually hit 2 control rooms, actually, pretty much. But anyway, the point was, they actually sold they were selling the paint because the paint had already been ordered from the factory, and it was actually already going to be shipped to the place in great big huge tankers. And they had actually stolen one of the tankers, or we're going to steal the tankers, and we're just going to launch it, because they're like, why paint it? We're going to kill them anyway. And that's when my people started to wonder if something was a little bit off about everything, because, like I said, it was a couple weeks in and they hadn't actually painted the rocket. They actually painted the rocket on the launch pad. And of course, all this is covered up and part of the hush-hush national security on a need-to-know basis. Because they were going to sell the paint. They'd actually already sold the paint illegally. And they actually weren't going to launch it because they were just going to kill everybody at Mission Control, and even some of the public people. They're like, well, we got to kill these people anyway. So anyways, so they actually weren't even going to worry about it. So they were actually keeping the launch a secret, because they were going to kill the launch control people. And as soon as this rocket launched into orbit, they actually killed everybody at that base, including the firefighters. Later on, there was like, we were firefighters, we were there. Nothing happened. And those were actually firefighters that were kids when their dads or somebody else died. Like I said, this is actually 1930 or 1920. 1930-ish, I think, when this was actually happening, and it was happening like in Russia or someplace. It's all been covered up, and it's all basically a big lie. But pretty much Nixon and JFK, and it's all part of the JFK-Nixon launch, because that's actually my money being launched into space, which makes me your epic creator and epic ruler and lord of your planet. So anyway, though, but Nixon was trying to get, access to all that money and all that stuff and all that paint to steal it. And also over the next 40 to 50 years, he was going to be going on a rampage anyway. So he really didn't care about anything. So they killed everybody at that, simultaneously, like right after that missile launch, they went in and they killed everybody at the launch pad. And then I don't know if they didn't launch for quite a few years. They did the one, and then I don't know what happened after that. I forget. It's a little murky. I'm not going to go ahead and put my foot in my mouth and actually say things. But pretty much after that launch, after this launch right here, which is the first launch, a lot of people died. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people died. Pretty much, they killed everybody at the launch control, and basically Nixon was like, "Okay, lock it down," and they shot everyone there. And they started shooting people like crazy. And basically it was the beginning of the Nixon-JFK takeover. And pretty much the worst time in human history on Earth. Anyway, it's been covered up, of course, but if you do the research, you'll find, Nixon tried to say, yeah, those people are still alive. Look, see here. And other people were like, those aren't the same people. Those aren't the people that were there. They just have the same names. Anyway, they switched everything around and covered it all up. Anyway, you'll find it as national security, need to know in the Pentagon, or it's just been burned or everything else. But basically, everyone at that base died as soon as the rocket was done and got to orbit. They walked into the control room and shot everybody in the control room at that site. Everyone died, and many people would later on say this and verify that was true, that everyone at that site died. And they also killed one of the other control rooms, too. Everybody at that site died, too. And I think they actually had forgotten about the film or something like that. Like, the film actually sat inside the camera case because they were going to destroy all evidence or something like that. I forget what the details are about the film, but the film had actually sat unknown for quite some time or something like that. And I think then again, later on, somebody picked it up and said, this is happening live. This is happening live. We're launching this live right now. News. Anyway, they did this whole thing where they actually launched it, and people went outside to see the rocket launch, and they're like, nobody saw the rocket launch. They're like, well, there should have been something, but there was nothing. And everybody looked outside and said, well, they said on the TV they just launched it and it's live, and we just thought, because Nixon was like, this is live, and they had this is live at the bottom. And they said, this is happening live. We're launching now. The great Apollo news mission, blah, blah. And that's why they said it was faked, because everybody went outside and they looked around and there was, airplanes, they asked everyone, did you see a rocket launch? Did you see a rocket launch? And nobody saw a contrail or rocket launch going into space, because it happened 40 or 50 years before they said it. And this was actually a high-speed camera with film, and they were like, how can that be live? It's a high-speed camera. So it couldn't be live. So anyway, like I said, Nixon just came out. Like I said, everyone had been believing Nixon and actually thinking that whatever, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like I said, they were saying, this is live. This is happening live right now. We're launching. And we're switching over to Apollo mission so you can listen in. Yes, mission control. Anyway, they did one of those maneuvers. And they faked it. Like 40 years or 30 years after the fact, they faked the whole thing. The whole thing had already actually happened and been done and over with, like 30 years before. And they had already killed, like 5 years or 10 years or 30 years before, they had already killed everybody at the mission control, covered it up, killed the other people, and covered it up. And it was actually some other JFK, like one of the other clones picked it up and was just playing it like, this is live, and didn't even know what he had. They didn't realize that everyone at that site had actually died, and because he wasn't there. He wasn't the same JFK. JFK, he had been saying, I'm immortal, I'm immortal, I'm immortal. Yeah, that's why I'm not aging. And it was actually the previous guy that actually lived and died, and then like the third or second or third JFK picked it up, found the film, and was like, "Okay, this is happening live. This is happening live," and he had no idea what actually happened at the site before.